This is just Brian Latimer's opinion on kayak versus Jon Boat. Comparing a bass boat to a kayak is not really a fair comparison. However, I do believe that a Jon Boat and a kayak is pretty much equal in what they bring to the table. Now, depending on what you like and what you use, the bodies of water you fish, one or the other may be best for you. And if you're looking to buy your first boat or getting into the boating market, these are great boats to help you get out there and fish, and great first boats. First topic is going to be storage. I think I'm going to have to give it to kayak when it comes to storage. You know, a Jon Boat, you can leave it outside, you don't need a shop, but you need a little bit more space to keep a Jon Boat versus a kayak. So I would have to give the check to kayak when it comes to storage. So I just loaded this kayak in the back of my truck. It took me about 5 minutes. Now that is it probably took a little bit more effort than it does to load a Jon Boat when it comes to effort, but I still have to give the loading aspect and trailering and hauling to the kayak. You don't need a truck for a kayak. You can throw it up on top of an SUV or minivan or whatever you drive. You can just throw it up on the top and take off fishing. This is a heavily contested topic right here, is the cost. The number one thing that I saw in the comments on one of my latest videos on kayaks was, I don't have the money to buy X, Y, and Z. And I think there's a big misconception out there about the cost of kayaks versus a Jon Boat. Many people say that it costs more to own a Jon Boat than a kayak. I can't say that I can go with that. I could take a 10 or 12 foot Jon Boat, add a trolling motor and a battery, I can take off, have a lot more mobility, just have a lot more options down the road, versus when I get a kayak, kayak's always going to be a kayak. And that's pretty much it. All right, so I'm going to give it to Jon Boat when it comes to the cost effectiveness of the two rigs. All right, let's talk about maintenance. Which one is going to be better, a Jon Boat or a kayak when it comes to maintenance? Definitely got to go with a kayak. Kayak's super easy. There's no mechanical movements on most of your kayaks, so there's really nothing to take care of, nothing to put maintenance on. I leave mine outside. They're sunbaked, they get leaves in them, and when I get ready to use them, I blow the leaves out of them and I take off and I go fishing, and everything works exactly like it's supposed to. Try that with a Jon Boat with a 9.9 on it and tell me how that works out. It's going to be very frustrating. So yes, there's a little bit more maintenance when it comes to owning a Jon Boat than there is a kayak. So I got to give it to the kayak. Launching. If you're new to boating and you have a Jon Boat on a trailer, a 15, 16 foot Jon Boat on a trailer, you got to learn how to back a trailer. So that is just an extra step that it would take for you to have a successful day of boating. So I'm going to give the nod when it comes to trailering and launching to kayak. At some point, if you have a boat, you're going to get pretty serious about fishing. And although you may not compete at the highest level, at some point you're going to want to try out your skill set against other anglers. So tournaments is probably going to be in your vocabulary if you're a fisherman at some point. When it comes to tournaments, I gotta give it to the kayak crowd. If you think you want to get on the competitive side of fishing, and I promise you, if you fish and if you have a boat at some point you're going to want to, the kayak community has more resources when it comes to tournaments. This is one that I don't think anyone ever thinks about, is the fellowship aspect of kayaking versus a Jon Boat. One thing that I really don't like about my kayaks is I have 3 kids, so I love to fish with my kids. I love to spend time in the outdoors with my kids, and I do have more than one kayak. So when we do go kayaking with my oldest son, I give him his own boat and let him do his own thing, which is great. But if you don't have a kid that's capable of taking his own boat out, and a kayak is a one-man deal. Even when you're fishing with buddies, I like to fish with friends every now and then, and it's just not the same when I'm in my kayak in my boat and my buddy's in his kayak and his boat in different sections of the creek. It is nice to be in a Jon boat and have that one-on-one conversation with a friend or a family member or a child, and be able to just share that experience in the boat. It's just something magical about it. It's something that I really like and that I'm attached to, is that fellowship experience of being in one boat together and feeling and seeing the same things. So when it comes to the fellowship aspect of the kayak versus Jon boat, I'm definitely going to give it to a Jon boat because I like fishing with someone. Anything you own, at some point you're going to buy it and you're going to sell it. Resale on the kayak versus Jon boat. You know, I got to be honest, I've never sold any of my kayaks, but I can say this: the Jon boat community is never going to go anywhere. It's tough, but I'm going to give it to the Jon boat community. I think you just have a bigger pool of people you can sell to, so I have to give the resale to the Jon boat community. All right, let's talk about customization. When it comes to customization, what you can add and put on the Jon boat, what you can do to personalize your kayak, I'm gonna have to give it to the Jon boat side. Now, I know there's a lot of stuff that you can do and bolt onto a kayak, right? But most of that stuff is bolt-on deals. You're pretty much tied into a category of what you can put on your kayak, what that looks like, and the color you get. When it comes to a Jon boat, your floor layout, just from customizing your floor layout to what you're gonna put on it, what you can do with it, you just have so many things that you can do with a 12, a 14, a 16-foot Jon boat, that I have to give the nod to the Jon boat when it comes to customization and the things that you can do to personalize your rig and make it yours and specific for your style of fishing where you live. You gotta go with the Jon boat, because with the kayak, you are kind of locked into what you can do with that particular rig. Your floor layout on a kayak is this. It is what it is. There's nothing you can do to change it. Doesn't mean it's bad. Doesn't mean it needs to be changed. Doesn't mean it needs to be changed. But when it comes to a Jon boat, you are absolutely unlimited what you can do with that boat. So customization, personalization, making it unique to you, gotta go with the Jon boat. Support and the community. That's a very important part, especially if you're a new boater. Gotta go with the kayak community. Huge group of people that are willing to share and show you what works with them. It's just really supportive. I like what they're doing. There's a lot of websites, there's a lot of stores and dealers that will help you when it comes to kayaks. By far, I think the kayak community has it right when it comes to support and helping you enjoy your time on the water. One thing we definitely got to talk about when it comes to kayak versus a Jon boat is the stability. And in my opinion, when you're talking about stability, I definitely got to give it to the Jon boat over the kayak. I don't care how you look at it. When you compare the two, you just have more stability in a Jon boat than you do in a kayak. It's a bigger footprint. You have covering more space on the water. It's a more stable platform to fish out of. I know the kayaks are big nowadays. You got really big 14-foot kayaks. Hobie makes a big pro angler that looks like it's about as big as a Jon boat. But in the end, you definitely just have to give the stability factor, feeling safe while you're fishing. You got to give it to the Jon boat. Now this one, when it comes to stealthiness, definitely got to give the nod to the kayak. You can get into some pretty amazing places when it comes to kayak fishing. That boat can get in really shallow water, but the thing about it is you can get into really shallow water quietly. The thing I always hated about a Jon boat is anytime you just lay a rod down, or if you just the slightest movement, even the hole slap from the boat itself, just creates a lot of noise. It makes like a Jon boat makes a lot of noise from the boat itself just being slapped by waves on the side of it, from just when you move around in it. A Jon boat, like, you're going to be heard. So got to give the nod to a kayak when it comes to stealthiness, being able to sneak up on a fish. If you like to saltwater fish and get in like really shallow marshes and places like that, a kayak by far is going to be way more stealthy than a Jon boat. I don't even think this would be a fishing video if we didn't talk about how well each boat fishes. Without a doubt, you know, how well you can maneuver, make casts, present your lures is ultimately the deciding factor in which boat you need to get. And when it comes to which one you can actually present your bait in the best, be most comfortable in, and be able to actually present your bait, the fishability of the boat, gotta go with the Jon boat on that one. The Jon boat has more room, you got more space, you can stand up, you can move around, and you can place your boat. I feel like you got more control, bigger surface area covering the water with the Jon boat, so I feel like it doesn't float and skate around quite as much. So you got a little bit more control. The next thing I think you should figure into whether you need a Jon boat or a kayak is the safety factor. It's a big deal for me. 15 years ago, it wouldn't really be that big of a deal, but now it is a much bigger deal for me, is how safe am I in my boat. I got kids, I want to get home to them. Without a doubt, I'm going with the Jon boat when it comes to safety. The reason I picked the Jon boat over safety, I know you have the issues with the motor and you're going faster, obviously that's more dangerous. But if you hook up your kill switch and you just use some common sense, you're probably gonna be okay. The biggest thing that makes a Jon boat safer to me is the fact that you can actually see it bigger. It's a bigger vessel, it sets up higher above the water. I think it's a little bit, you can hear it coming, you know it's there. The thing that always scares me in a Jon boat is, God forbid, that my boat is too low to the water for another vessel to see me and them running into me. I think that's my constant fear when I'm fishing out of a kayak. And of course, if something happens and let's say a storm comes up, the fact that I have an engine or an electric motor on my Jon boat, I can get back a lot faster. Wind isn't a deterrent. I just got to give the nod to a Jon boat. If I want to take my kids out between the two boats, I got to give it to the Jon boat, just because I can tuck them down, I can protect them, I can get back to where I need to a little bit better. In the event that something happens, I think I would feel safer in a Jon boat over the kayak. So kayak versus the Jon boat. First thing we looked at was storage. Then we looked at launching the kayak. We looked at the fishability, fellowship, and we also looked at maintenance. We talked about tournaments. We even talked about resale value. We talked about customizing. We talked about cost, support, and I know I'm running out of space, but we talked about safety. We have to give the storage to kayaking. We also have to give launching to kayaking. Now, when it comes down to fishability, we went with the Jon boat. We felt like that was best. Look, we're tied 2-2 right now. Comes to maintenance, no brainer. The kayak is definitely easier to take care of. Now the kayak takes the lead 3-2. Now, tournaments. Without a doubt, kayaks has more opportunities for you guys to compete in. So got to give that to the kayak. Not looking too good for the Jon boat at this point in this shootout. Resale value. Oh man, this is a tough one, but I did choose to say that the Jon boat is a better option when it comes to reselling. Customization, there's no doubt in my mind, the Jon boat is unlimited possibilities. No doubt. Look at it, 4-4. We're tied up at this point. Comes to cost, I know this will be heavily contested, but I gave it to the Jon boat because I feel like you just have more options. When it comes to support, I'm going to go with the kayak. And lastly, safety. I know you can see it. I'll slide my page up. Safety. I got to give it to the Jon boat. Now, this is a really tight race. It looks like it is 6-5, but I got to give it to the Jon boat. The Jon boat is the winner in my particular shootout versus, or whatever you want to call it. I'm going to give it to the Jon boat. I think it's the most versatile to have. If I could only have one, but you can see as tight as it is, so tight, I basically just gave you permission to tell your wife that you can get a kayak and a Jon boat. All right? Just tell old girl, I'm getting the kayak and the Jon boat because B-Lat said so.